So, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for this panel too. What an exciting session that was. Put your hands together once again for Imran Furkan, Richard Elridge, Lakshmi Vijay Sundara, Blake Larson, and Harsha Purasinger. Okay, let's start the next session. How many of you are teensy-weensy bit hungry? Yeah? Thirsty and hungry, okay. So, the bad news is the break is at 7 o'clock. But the good news is the food stalls open at 6 o'clock. The bad news is that there's a session running here at 6 o'clock. So if you go out to get your food, you're going to miss a bit of the session. So we'll figure it out. Okay, all right. Let me get into this next set. And this is an interesting one. It's an appropriate thing to talk about, particularly close to election time. It's about our cities, shaping cities through innovation. Right? A little synopsis on this. Cities and its citizens have seen their lives being transformed to a better state of living through the adoption of technology. Whether it be a convenient public transport, clean air, cashless payments, or easy parking, lives of citizens have improved. Or have they? Who are the important players of this ecosystem and how are they collaborating? How can startups play a pivotal role in shaping our cities? Is innovation shaping the city to an inclusive environment? Are the citizens really benefiting from the city being smart? What's your take on it? Technology efficiently used to improve quality of life in a sustainable manner. That is the theme of this segment, ladies and gentlemen. And to moderate this, please put your hands together and welcome the founder and CEO of PayMedia Private Limited, Kanishka Weeramunda. He'll be here. Let me introduce his panel in the meantime. All right, on the panel today is the head of Startups Ecosystem, CityZone, Israel, Yael Malatskey. Let's hear it for Yael. There she is, getting a big chair. Group Chief Operating Officer, Dialog Axiata PLC, Dr. Rehan Deutschmann. Director, Digital Solutions and Transit Payments for Visa. And he likes to be called simply Guru. So let's put our hands together for H. Gurumoorthy rather. Guru, as he's better known. Director of Innovation, Birmingham City University, Professor Rehan, Bhana. He's a bit late for the exercises, and so he's doing it now. All right, put your hands together for the panel. I'm going to hand it over to the moderator to take over from here.
Hello. Hello. All right. So there's a lot of pressure on us because we are the last panel before the food. Right. So smart cities. Right. So population is growing in all the cities. Right. So if we don't plan for this, we will have a lot of challenges in future. So we are going to basically have a discussion with you all how the future is going to be in cities. Right? So first of all, I will get each panelist to give a very short introduction about their experience and their interaction on smart cities and what they do. Right. Yael, shall we start from you?
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me here. Well, my name is Yael, and I'm part of the CityZone team.
It's going to be a surprise, and it's going to be brought in at that time.
CityZone is the living lab for smart cities in Israel, founded by the city of Tel Aviv, the municipality, and the University of Tel Aviv. So we have two leading roles in the ecosystem of urban tech and smart cities in Israel. One, we are the beta site, playground, sandbox, and other great buzzwords for testing technology and evaluating prior to their implementation throughout the city. We're hosting that in our Living Lab, which is a mini city. It's a high-tech area in the north east of Tel Aviv. And the second one is based on that. Living Lab is an open innovation platform helping startups to work and pilot and project with the city of Tel Aviv and helping them to connect to the ecosystem, to meaningful players around the ecosystem, to create business strategies, go-to-market strategies, and investment strategies, and also opening the door for them on an international levels with other other cities throughout Israel, and also to the global by creating an international global alliance and funding and a soft landing mechanism with other living labs and hubs similar to ours throughout the world. And thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm extremely honored and happy to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming. I'm lucky to be working for Dialog Axiata. We are really looking for one thing, which is inclusion. And I think that resonates with today's topic in terms of smart city, because we want to be helping to have everyone participate in the digital revolution. Specifically for smart cities, we are basically saying we need to have a couple of building blocks in place to really have an open ecosystem. One is we need to have connectivity, so we can talk all applications, but if we don't have a good connectivity, it will not be working. So we are really after providing a ubiquitous, a safe, and a fast infrastructure in the country that can be mobile, that can be fixed wireless, that can be fiber, whatever it takes. The second, what we are saying is we need to have some certain platforms in place, and we need to have data, big data, and data analytics in place so that an open ecosystem can be created and we don't have to reinvent all these building blocks over and over again. One of these platforms you may know, I hope you know, is called Idea Mart for developers like all of you. There is a sister platform called Idea Biz that is more for enterprises, which really exposes some basic APIs like location, like charging, like SMS, and quite a number of more funky APIs for everyone to use so that you don't have to reinvent all these basic APIs yourselves. The third layer are the applications where we are engaged, but we are not saying that we will be inventing all these applications. It should be really the creativity of the crowd, of the developer crowd, of the startups like you to create exciting applications. So I think that is the mental framework that we have, and we want to really help work upwards so that we get exciting applications for things like smart city.
And Guru?
So good afternoon. Great to be here. It's a very different venue. And I am part of Visa. My name is Gurumoorthy. Short, you can call me Guru. People kind of make fun of me sometimes. Are you a Guru in the vernacular language in India means teacher. So they asked me, do you teach something? So I said, no, not really. But I do practice a lot of stuff around payments, and I love, and I'm very, very passionate about payments. So, and in Visa, what do? I'm part of the digital solutions team, and I also take care of the transit payments and the urban mobility. So, these functions are very, very close to the kind of work I do, and especially on the area of digital payments, I have had a lot of exposure, right from mobile payments, contactless payments, chip payments, and right now the new hot thing that's going on around in so many Asian markets, which is the QR payments. So I think great to be here, and I hope to have a lot of interactions. Thank you.
Rehan?
So I have been called Guru before, but I hold that to esteem with my background being at Birmingham City University. So we're a university the size of 24,000 students, and particularly my role in there, particularly in computing and digital tech, has been really fascinating around innovation, innovation in the pedagogy, which is really about how teaching and learning can embrace the act of innovation, particularly also entrepreneurialism in practice. You may have heard of Birmingham City University. We're all about partnerships. I've been here to Sri Lanka for a number of years, and in 2017, I also was part of the speakers and particularly the academic workshop where we did a lot of work in realizing what we are doing, particularly in this community in the heart of Sri Lanka. It's been fascinating to see that. So yeah, all about innovation.
Right. So let's first start with Rehan. Rehan, what are the enablers of smart cities when you look at from an academic point of view? And also, I know that Birmingham was trying and they are already planning on being a smart city.
So I think for us at the university, smart city is a domain that we work in. But the emphasis of smart city requires, as Rehan mentioned earlier, we have a data analytics, we have a research group working in that space. We have a networks and security. It's all about communications, all about architecture. We have a research group in that. We have a research group in digital media, so all your content is being translated. We have these specialist core teams that do that. And fundamentally, we heard earlier in the conference where the digital transformation piece, how do big corporates actually embrace the activity? All these make up to the smart city domain. They're all, it's an end-to-end piece, and a real activity for us that has really enabled us back in Birmingham as a city, and our contribution in that, and I credit Dr. Adele to this, is initiating the Internet of Things, and particularly the IoT space has been a real enabler for smart cities. But there is the IoT specialism that comes into it, the tech space, but there's something more important that we've realized and that we've enabled our experts to do from each research group, and that is enable our people. Because far more than that is our smart people. That's what it takes to actually drive a smart city. So this is all about how you realize talent, how you nurture talent, and grow talent to the next stage, so we can actually become a smarter space to work in or a smarter city to work on, and particularly for the good, right?
Yeah, I think Yael, if you look at mainly the difference between urban tech and smart cities, because you already have implemented a lot of things in your city, and you have a lot of experience. You're working with a lot of startups. Right? So how do you see that?
So we use the phrase urban tech. Urban tech includes within it the smart city sector, but it also refers to larger domains within the ecosystem and the urban context. So working with the city and around the city and with the residents of the city, there's all of different customers and potential users. And startups that wants to work with the city don't have to turn to the city as a customer. They can also work with other vendors that already operate or already reply to some of the city vendors. They can work with collaborations. They can turn other collaborations that work towards the city with corporates, multinationals, etc. And they can also work with the residents themselves. So potentially for the startups themselves, they don't need to be B2M or B2G. They can also be B2B, B2C, B2B2C, etc. And one of the focus that we did within our labs is posting, communicating challenges. That's what the city needs in terms of what is the problem. And we communicate that to the ecosystem, to the private sectors, and startups apply with their tech solutions. And some of the challenges not even necessarily coming from the municipality itself. They can come from corporates that work within the municipality, and therefore can also help with different financial strategy for the startups. So basically the startups that looks for customers throughout the city can work with either Dell or OEM or other telecom and other vendors and collaborators. So that's more or less.
Yeah. Rehan, you mentioned about Dialog having a lot of platforms ready, right? So how do you see with 5G coming into, I think Dialog has already done certain testing with 5G, right? So a lot of people talk that 5G is going to be the enabler for smart cities, right? Where do we stand?
Yeah, so we, as a company, are always fairly on the forefront of especially connectivity innovation. 5G clearly is very attractive technology. We have been launching 4G as the first and also 5G as the first, even in the region. However, 5G currently is not commercially available. First, we need to get the spectrum for commercial use, and then, of course, we can launch 5G also for commercial purpose, which then will benefit all of you all. However, I was saying also earlier in our pre-discussion, we don't have to wait for 5G. We are in the country in a very lucky situation. Very lucky situation. We have near 100% coverage with a very good 4G network here as compared to many other countries in the world. We have a fixed wireless proposition in the country which is second to none. Very high broadband. We have 75 megahertz on 2.3 gig, if that tells you anything. It's a very good position that we have in the country today. We don't have to wait for 5G. 5G will give us more speed. 5G will give us less latency. 5G will give us the opportunity to have more denser networks. But even today, I think we can develop on the current infrastructure. And secondly, why we are lucky is because our prices are extremely low. There was a research article recently published by a UK research company. They have looked across the entire world, 230 countries. What is the price per gig, the price per GB? And Sri Lanka came out as the number 7 cheapest country in the world in terms of data pricing. Number 1 is India. I was in India before. I know why that is. There's Reliance Jio, who is really disrupting the entire market. And we in Sri Lanka are following very closely a very low price per GB, which means it's a very good news because we can actually not worry about using data connectivity services. So I think 5G is important. We can talk more about 5G, no question. We need to get the commercial spectrum. We need to be able to also provide it to the users. We need to provide it to the enterprises for sure. That will be extremely attractive, but don't wait for it. You can use 4G. You can use the platforms that I mentioned to provide nice IoT services even today.
Right. Guru, so I'm going to basically combine a question from the audience and what I had in mind to ask you. So, being Visa one of the pioneers in payments, right, with all these advancement in technologies and cities becoming more smarter, right, how do you see that seamless payments would enable all these other things what other technologies are bringing into the table?
So I think if we look at what Visa has been doing for probably over 40 years around the world, it's been largely being in focusing on how quick and how reliable and how efficient payments can be, right? So pretty much, I'm sure a large number of the audience sitting here would be familiar or would be using a product from Visa in some form or shape, right? I think the focus has been that if I have to make something seamless, it has to be very easy to use, right? Why would anyone use a product which is, it becomes very challenging to, pay or challenging to make a transaction, right? So I think that has been a very, very key thrust area. And if I were to kind of link it back to a smart city environment, I think where we have not kind of broadened our play in a smart city environment, we have kind of kept it very focused, and we have sort of limited it presently to an urban mobility space, right? We're saying that in a smart city, you have to get from point A to point B, you need to have a good urban mobility, your ability to pay seamlessly for that mobility, right? And also have the capability for that payment to be very convenient, right? So take an example of what we've been doing in some of the big cities which are now smart cities in the world. If you look at places like Singapore, for example, right? If I have a Visa contactless card in my pocket, right, it becomes extremely easy for me to traverse across the city. I can use multimodal transport modes, pay by the same card everywhere. So that's convenience. I have speed of payment, so I can just tap and pay, right? It becomes extremely convenient for when I just go through. So if for the folks who've been to Singapore's MRT, you'll realize how quick the payment is. Dozens and dozens of customers are just tapping and walking in, right? And that's convenience, right? And when all this is blended with efficiency at the background, right? Making sure that every tap, every payment that you make goes through successfully, and all the participants in the ecosystem are equally benefited as a result of this exercise, I think. So I think that has been our thrust area for several years, and in a smart city environment, through the channel of urban mobility, we have actually, made it happen today.
Can you also share a little bit of experience? Like, if you look at Sri Lanka, it's a 95% cash market. So have you found out any similar markets which has rapidly converted? Like, I know India had a big adaptation on digital payments, right? What are the enablers for that?
So it's a mixture of things, right? So one of our core agendas as an organization has been to go after cash, right? And if I were to kind of take a similar example to Sri Lanka, it was India a few years back. We had, 94% of cash in the system, right? Equally heavy, cash-heavy economies. Of course, what has happened is it's a mix of initiatives that happens. It's not just the corporate world or the payments world or the participants in the ecosystem who actually contribute to that, but it's also a mix of what the government does, right? And if you look at it, and for those of you who have been reading the media over the last couple of years, India is a very classic example where the kind of government went, hammer and tongs behind cash as a thing. And, that was such good news for us, because the moment the government takes the initiative, they lay the railroad, right, for others to ride on, right? That becomes extremely important in a context. So even in a market like Sri Lanka, and I can see these happening here also, right? Let me take an example of what's happening in this market, with respect to QR payments, right? It's early stages, but you can see that there are initiatives happening from the central bank that are facilitating payments using QR and using a mobile device, right? So it's happening. But I think it's just that how much effort that the government takes to push that.
I think, Yael, you have a story to share here, right? Your new transport app, which is getting launched.
Yeah, still been working on it. It's not mine, actually, but there is an open tender for the municipality of Tel Aviv. Exactly, by the way, is that to get rid of all the cards. I mean, if 90% here using cash, and how many percentage have smartphones in Sri Lanka?
I think close to about 60%.
So the jump will be straight away for a mobile app that be able to connect between everyone and make the payments through there. And that's exactly what we're trying to do in Israel after a long process. Now, recently, we just closed a call for companies that basically 3 different groups of companies joined together and applied to the call for tender, meaning that they'll be able to create an app that through that app, people will be able to purchase their rides through sharing through the public transport, but also sharing cars and scooters and all sorts of transportation throughout the city. And the great thing about it, that compared to what we discussed earlier about the UK, the specific in Birmingham, where the student needs to pay for a yearly payment for the bus or the train or the tube, Basically, the app will calculate how many trips you did during the month, and then by the end of the month, you'll get the best rate, whether that will be a single or 2 single rides or an unlimited for the whole month. So this way, the residents will benefit from sharing transport and use public transport, and hopefully will leave their cars at home.
Right. Okay, so since Guru and Yael both talked about transportation, I think transportation is one of the early adapters in smart cities. Rehan, you have anything to add on that?
So, I mean, if we just go back to London, right, we talk about the Oyster card. I count how many years that has been there, based on RFID technology, very successful. But again, it lacks a little bit of convenience. We have to buy an Oyster card, we have to top it up, we have to do stuff to keep at it. Same thing, close to heart. I'll come back to very close to heart in terms of Colombo. But if I talk about back to Birmingham, if a young boy needs to start secondary school, he's talking about going on to his journey of independence. Again, we're talking about the same model being applied, a top-up card, where it's based on, again, RFID technology. But this is on buses as opposed to the underground. But, I mean, as I was driving in, and I've been here a couple of times and over the years, but what dawned on me, especially coming into this panel about smart cities, was how smart the people of Colombo are, particularly the drivers, right? And you may be wondering there, right? So I know Yana was talking to me about, but have we got any cameras? Have we got these things in Colombo? So why are we talking about smart city? Actually, to become a smart city, you need all these technologies in place. But I think you're already doing that. If you look at when you're driving around Colombo, you have 3 lanes, especially those that are painted up. And if you look at it very carefully, at peak hours, there are 4 lanes. Honestly, I'm absolutely amused. I don't know how this happens. So on my way, a couple of journeys around Colombo this week, I've been analyzing, and I couldn't explain it. I said, you do this. Drivers of Colombo, you do this. You naturally orientate the 4th lane. It took some time for Kanishka to explain how this culture is, but you've been doing it for years. So this is smart people adapting infrastructure to enable them to get from point A to point B. You are very smart people.
See, we don't have still smart cities, but we have smart people. Right.
Excellent.
Yael, you want to add something?
Yeah, we have only in our program, I think, 3 different startups that's solving that exact problem. I mean, we're not good in adopting our own technology, but we're good in inventing and making some startups in relating to city transport challenges. And well, we can make 3 lines into 4, but we try our best into manage the whole roads and everything. But yeah.
Just talking about roads, right? Today they're laying roads in some parts of Europe. Rehan can probably have direct experience, but particularly in the Netherlands, where it's made out of old tires and plastics, and it's all embedded with technology. It's all sustainable. It'll charge cars up and all sorts of stuff. We talked about sustainability. It's fascinating how far smart cities and sustainabilities will drive together. So smart cities plays an important role as a catalyst to pull all these opportunities together.
Right. So, Yael, you have been working with the governments in terms of getting your startups to engage. I think Rehan also has worked quite well with the Birmingham City Council in terms of getting involved in developing the smart city in Birmingham, right? Of course, I'm sure Visa is always working with every government in terms of how they can contribute in getting the payments straight line, right? Dialog would have definitely experience in Sri Lanka getting technology up to date, right? How do we get the governments or the municipalities or city councils to basically look at the future of building a smart city, right? So this question is to all of you. I would want everybody to contribute. How do we push? How do we get the startups engaged? So there are a lot of startups here who are doing on tech innovations. So how do we engage? How do we make that marriage work?
So if I can just say that, ecosystems, we're talking about building ecosystems. It requires the role of a government. It requires the role of smart people. It requires the role of private organizations, companies. It requires startups to evangelize and drive that forward. So it's really important for us in Birmingham anyway, for us to partner with the local council to actually develop ideas and particularly use cases to define what that use case means to the city, what it means particularly to citizens, and how it benefits them in the real time. We know data plays a humongous role. There's one data I record, 79% of executives in companies, businesses realize that actually, it's got to be data-driven. We can't make informed decisions without data. So where is this data coming from? Okay, so I think the ecosystem requires the role of government and enabling the others to draw that. And I think ICTA here plays an amazing role.
I can fully agree. The role of the public sector, especially for smart cities, is quite large. One of the things I think we need to do more is to convey the benefit of what we are doing. If I go through some of the applications that we have some experience in, maybe humble, but at least we can look at them. One of them is the metering. So we are saying, why do you need to go out and read manually your electricity from the meter? Why don't we just connect the electricity meter and then you get wirelessly your reading and then basically pay what you use? There we have deployed quite a few thousand of such devices, and they work beautifully. You can see that not only is it easier for the, of course, reading, but also people are able, to your point of data, to actually start to understand where the heck am I really spending all my money for the electricity. Maybe at night I don't have to have the AC on. Maybe I can save some money by not cooling all the rooms. So the metering case is one where we believe a lot of benefit will come, and we can scale up tremendously. The devices are there, the connectivity is there, the platform is there, everything is there. It is about scaling. It can be through the electricity company, or it can be through the basically apartment builders, or even the retail customer itself. Second one is, if you look at alarming, we are connecting the ATMs in the country where the banks, for example, are interested to understand whether the ATM is up or down, whether the heat is too high, whether the camera that is looking at the ATM actually is up or down, and whatever other reading you want to take. This is another clear use case where you can actually benefit the specific company, or it can be any other such hub where you connect the IoT device to. The third one would be on the tracking and tracing. There also, we have the technology today. We have devices which are nicely to be plugged into cars or to trucks. We have the platform, like I mentioned, the IoT platform. It's actually available to all of you all, where you can track the device. You can plug it into your own car. I have it in my car. You can plug it into a whole fleet. You can plug it even into, for example, the garbage collection fleet of the city. And you can start to actually understand, where are all my cars? Are they utilized? Are they maybe underutilized? And you can optimize your system, and again, the benefit is clearly there. Another one we have done is on the trash bin metering. So who knows the issue if the trash bin is full or the person comes and the trash bin actually is empty. It's a waste of resources. So simple, there is a sensor which we have. You can put it into the trash bin on the top, and again the signal comes to the platform, and in this case the municipality or whoever is operating the trash facility can actually optimize the route planning according to where really the need is. So looking at these basic things, not even to talk about the more funky stuff like, for example, putting a camera and doing face detection, which we are also working on and we have live especially after the Easter attack. It's been a very significant effort from our own perspective to really use the visual video analytics capabilities for detecting any issues. That is even coming on top of that. But the basic infrastructure, the devices, the platform, all of this is there. So now I think it's about realizing the actual benefit to each of those participants so we can scale it up across the country.
Yeah, before we go into that, there was a question similar to that. They were asking, how do you basically break the bureaucracy of the organizations?
Well, breaking the bureaucracy is, I wish we could all manage that. But I really want to, I'll try to touch that as well, but I really want to refer to the questions because as soon as you asked it, it was burning me, oh, I've got so many things to say about it. But I want to divide it into two different things. First, the central government. So in Israel, we have the Innovation Authority, which is a huge organization funded by the government, which is part of the government, and help to bring in an innovation into the government, to learn from it, to work together, to evaluate it, and to understand how we can implement that throughout Israel. So they do that through call for funding, through funding startups and projects, etc. So that's on the one hand. On the second, with the government, we are at CityZone in our living lab. We work with with the municipality and with the government, specific industries and ministers, as being the design partner for the startup. Meaning they'll be, from the first day, they'll be part of the election committee, so they'll choose the startup for the program, and they will work with them towards the whole process. So if, let's say, we talked earlier about privacy. So the privacy authority will work with our startup from day one to make themselves GDPR compliant and to make sure that all aspects are investigated and taken into consideration during the whole process. So that's on the one hand, same with the Ministry of Communication and other. And also I can say about the Israeli government, it's very open-minded. And the government in the last few years, 7 years or so, maybe 8, created all different ecosystems of the different industries in all of the domain aspects of our lives. And in each industry, they took for themselves partners from the private and the high-tech ecosystem to manage the community. And in this way, they're putting everyone together, the regulators, the governmental bodies, the municipalities, and corporate startups, investors, etc., in the same room, around the same table, talking to each other. And this way, this is how they bring in innovation to the government. On the municipality side, there's lots of activities all over Israel. I can say in Tel Aviv specifically, we run 5 different startups innovation program. Accelerators, living lab like ours, which is more towards POC oriented. And also the municipality doing a great thing, open their door for startups. They host every month a startup committee, which that lot of startups applying, and they're coming and they're presenting their technological and their model and everything to the municipality, all different departments of the municipality sitting around the table, hearing and understanding what kind of data the startup will need in order to make his validation. The day after, they go back to their departments working to make that data accessible for the startups, putting that on our open data source and make it accessible for the ecosystem itself. So obviously they make it anonymized and protected by privacy, etc. But this way, the municipality, one of the ways, opened her doors into tech and innovation. Well, the chicken and the egg for entrepreneurs, for early entrepreneurs, they need the data in order to make their POCs, in order to validate the product or service. But they go to the first customer, the customer will, the customer will tell them, like, show me that your product is working, show me that your service is working, show me the validation, and that's how they keep on going. Ask for data, needs to show the validation first. So this way, the municipality understood by making all the data accessible for the startups will bring a bridge. And this is exactly what we do in our program as well, together with corporates such as Dell Technologies, the Alliance of Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi, and Cisco,
which is funded and supporting our program.
Can I answer also to your question on the bureaucracy? I want to give actually a positive example. Yes, there may be bureaucracy, but again, let's not get bogged down by being looking at only the negative. Just this week, we have launched, I find a very interesting application. Not sure if you call it smart city, but it is, I find, quite smart. The problem that we have seen is that the state pensioners had to wait for the information about their pension coming in. And every year they would have to go physically to an office, quite sometimes painfully, to show that they're actually still legitimately getting the pension. So the Department of Pension, very proactively and very much leading the digital opportunity, and us, we have together, actually like a startup. It's a startup within Dialog, 2-3 people. We have created within a matter of weeks an application which now allows every single state pensioners to, in real time, see the date when the next pension is coming, and after the pension has come, sees exactly how much it is, whatever deductions there are, and they can now, based on this app, do a lot of more services. So it's becoming a hub for the specific segment of pensioners, which are actually more open to technology than some people think. So what I want to say is that, yes, there is a Department of Pension where you have maybe a suspicion of being not the most digitally savvy, but I think the opposite is true. There is a very much a willingness, if you can point out the benefit that you can deliver, if you can point out you can actually do it with a small number of people, like I said, 2-3 people, developers, for 2-3 spins. This was about a 6-8 week exercise. You are delivering huge value to 100,000 people in the country. So I wanted to answer to this bureaucracy question because, yeah, there may be bureaucracy, but let's not get bogged down. Let's look at the people that are proactive, like the Department of Pension, and we are able to do good use cases with people, and then others will follow, I'm sure.
Right. Now, this question is from the audience, right? So when we are becoming smart and smarter, we are also opening up another can of worms. That is cyber security and data protection. What happens to citizens' data? Because when we enable 5G devices, when you become smart citizens, right? What happens is there's a huge amount of data being collected that will be basically with the public authorities as well as startups with the private organizations which are trying to provide citizen solutions, right? So where do we stand with that? What examples can we give about protecting citizens' data?
So I think I'll just take a shot at that. We are one of the organizations globally who probably churns out tons of data, right? Primarily because that data is churned by all of us sitting in this room, right? As in when we use the various payment methods to make payments, right? There are two parts to that. One is how is that data used, or rather for what is it used? And second is how responsibly is it used, right? So I think if you just focus on for what it's used, I think I heard Yael say earlier that, you know, there is a certain amount of, there are initiatives across where there is anonymizing of data, right? And that's critical because today you can have any amount of security built on your infrastructure. You could have several layers of firewalls around, right? You could have the best of cybersecurity engineers with you. But I think the threat is real, right? We know it day in and day out. We hear of you know, several institutions. We are always worried, is my money in my bank safe, right? So I think that is a real thing that's going to happen. So what can institutions do with the data that they hold, right? They should kind of, use it in a way that does not identify the person who used it. So let me give an example. So we've done this in a couple of cities around the world, right? We've, in the area of mobility, there is data of usage based on how customers use their Visa card around at certain transport modes, right? Now, we had a ton of data. We used that data to essentially tell the transport authorities that, hey, look, there's a huge density of traffic happening at a certain point in time, right? Are you equipped to handle that density, right? This did not reveal the information of who did that transaction or how it happened. It just gave them the numbers and the sense of where there was a potential bottleneck and what they could solve for. And that also kind of folds into what governments look for, right? Even if you look for what governments and what a bureaucracy looks for, they look for solutions, right? They look for solutions in smart cities because they clearly don't have answers for everything. And that's what they look up to the industry, to people like you, to figure out how this can be done, right? The other part is how do you responsibly use the data? How do you store and responsibly reuse the data? I think, and that's where we've actually taken, gigantic steps to, ensure, we're forming specific data councils within the organization to ensure that every bit of data that's collected on our thing is kept safe, right? And it's anonymized. And there's complete transparency in how data is used.
Rehan, anything?
I think you put that very explicitly. So basically, the type of data you're collecting is important. Who is confidential data? And then the what is the color of my car. So what? Everybody can see the color of my car. Okay? But more importantly is responsibility. As tech of the future, you need to take that responsibility and you need to be transparent of what data you're holding or what data you're collecting, and you are following regulations and standards based on that. So you need to drive that forward.
So I was trying to Google quickly how many startups we have in cybersecurity in Israel. I don't get a good Wi-Fi signal, so I'm sorry for that, but I'm assuming a lot. It's one of the flourished industries in Israel right now, nowadays. But I can say that with another market open up, obviously it was even before the smart city opportunities and urban tech sector, but a lot of startups protecting data and, again, understanding that they are part of the urban tech ecosystem and not just running straight to the end customers for the municipality, but also for other customers, like for other vendors like Visa or others that work with the city. They all activate on that field, and they're all providing a security for our data and for all applications throughout the cities. The cities that the city basically have IoT devices and database, etc. One of our startups that participating in our program, it's called DID, identification, and what they do actually, they protect the footage of our faces through social media. So they are founded startup that recently opened a new department that dealing with protecting video, basically protecting our faces throughout the cameras that the city locates around the city. I think in Tel Aviv we have more cameras than here, so that's probably a problem that is one of the challenges that we're publishing and communicating to the ecosystem, as I was mentioning. So what they basically do, they will keep your biometrical characteristic so that the human eye will be able to recognize that it's your face, but any other data center or engine or computer science engines that will be trying to look for the same photos, such as Amazon, Facebook, etc., they won't be able to recognize this is the same person. And yes.
Yeah. So with the interest of the time, so you have a 15-second elevator close-up pitch. Shall we start from Rehan? What you want to give to the audience as a smart cities, how the future envision will be?
So I think, I'm just going to pick up from Rainer what he said, applications. Proving the applications is really important. You need to go and do now. A startup is a community of doing. So I think go and do, but build on communities, work as communities. And I'm going to give you one thing away. I did some research for you guys. There's a community around the world called Things Network. Colombo has it. There's one down south in Sri Lanka. investigate what that community is. And if you can't, talk to the people like ICTA agency who are doing a remarkable job for you guys, and they will enable you.
So I think for this community that's sitting here, I think from a payments perspective, the only message that I would like to leave is that just focus on three things, right, in a smart city environment. Focus on efficiency, focus on convenience, and focus on frictionless methods, right? Make living in a smart city a pleasure, right? And that's something which a lot of you can contribute in various ways. It's not just in payments, but in a host of other things across what is available in a smart city.
Yeah, so I think it's great news to have so many of you here. That actually is very good news for the country, because you all are interested and you are the, I think, driving force behind getting to the next level of smartness in our country. I have only two thoughts to leave with you. One is, use all the building blocks that we have. Don't invent the wheel. You can accelerate by putting yourself on top of the existing assets, be it connectivity, be it the platforms, be it the data, be it other applications, and of course team up. So use the platform and then go from there. I see too many people who are reinventing the wheel. People that are reinventing an IoT platform. That is already done. You can use it. You go on the internet, you search for IT Mart and IoT, you will find it. You can use it. You can hook up your device, an Arduino computer, you can switch it on, you can connect it to the platform, and you can use it today. So don't invent the wheel. Use the assets that are there and go from it. Secondly, while it is great to do your startup, and I'm very much supportive and we even invest into startups, consider to join a company like Dialog. I am kind of advertising now, because we are actually a set of startups. And I try to convey this a little bit in some of the examples. We are not a big company. We're actually a set of small startups who are doing really cool stuff. We have amazing amount of data. I didn't get to answer your question because it's one of the key things. I'm the chair of the Data Governance Council inside the company. We have on the group level a data privacy and security officer. So we are taking this 100% serious, but it is also a great opportunity to actually use the big data. And I don't think in the country anyone else has as much data on basically to use for the benefit of people. So consider to join us if you don't do your own startup. If you do your own startup and you fail, still consider to join us. Even more so, we will be very happy to get you all and give you a good place to work.
And to add to the first point, I would say get out your comfort zone. There, do things, learn about new markets. And the second one will be understand that it's a broader ecosystem. It's an urban tech ecosystem. It's a lot of domains, a lot of fields. Everything relates to in the urban context. And the third, it's most important thing, it's all about the people. Just work with people, connect with people, network with people. I'll be here for today, so I'll be happy to welcome you all. Come and reach out, and I'll be more than happy to learn about your startups.
Right, I think it was a great panel. I personally would like to thank all of you for your contribution, and I don't hope to hold you back from your break. And over to the computer.